Hi, I'm Christina.
And I'm Matt.
And this is New Wayz Podcast. Today, our guest is founder of Venice, Lindsey Wilson. Thank you for being here with us.
Thanks for having me.
Super excited for today's episode because I've personally done your cleanse and it was fabulous. On that note too, how about you tell us, what is Venice?
Venice is a gut health brand, so we're most well known for our broth elixirs. We were the first broth on the market to really cater to people with gut issues, and then also for our gut reset program that combines broth elixirs with 3 different plant-based milkshakes designed to drink morning, noon, and night.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a great, I know you guys do dabble in so many more things. I've looked at your vlog. You guys are now introducing skincare too. So there's so many things I want to jump into and ask you. But also, how did you come up with this brand or get inspired to start doing and creating this?
Yeah, I was struggling with gut issues at the time. Despite eating all organic food and really healthy, I still was experiencing a lot of bloating and just a really weakened immune system. I was getting constant sinus infections. And so I started researching ways that I could heal my gut. Through my research, just kind of decided that it was rooted in my gut health. And so I started researching gut health, how to heal my gut naturally. I came across like GAPS diet, low FODMAP, autoimmune protocol, anti-inflammatory diet. And just the more I read about all of these diets, I kept hearing about bone broth as something that was just so good for healing the gut. But I was also following a really restrictive list of ingredients that I was eating based on all of these different theories and diets, and almost all of them said to eliminate garlic and onions from your diet. And so when I started looking for bone broth, what I found was every single broth that I found had garlic, onions, celery, carrots, maybe parsley. They all had the same 3 to 5 ingredients, and pretty much every one of them had garlic and onions. I was like, how weird if this is supposed to be the number one thing for healing your gut. And then every one of them has 2 ingredients that I'm not supposed to be having.
What are those 2 ingredients? Is it garlic and onion? Okay.
Yeah, eliminating alliums and all kinds of inflammatory foods like sugar, soy, even at the time I was eliminating nightshades, like potatoes, peppers. I was eliminating spicy foods. So, yeah, I wanted to experience the benefits of bone broth, but I was also not able to find one that adhered to all of these different protocols I was trying to follow at the time. And so I started making my own, and I went to the farmer's market and just got a bunch of roots, herbs, vegetables, replaced the garlic and onions with ginger and turmeric, and really landed on what's now known as our signature recipe. And we call them broth elixirs because they're layered with all of these medicinal herbs, roots, and vegetables that really give the broth even more benefits. And it also just is nice to sip right out of the jar. So it tastes more like a tea than your traditional stock that might be more meaty, or with the garlic and onions more savory. Ours is more like a savory tea, but very herbal and floral notes in there.
Now, I'm curious to know, when regards to garlic and onion, especially because that's a huge staple in American food culture. I was raised to cook with a lot of those as a seasoning based, or as even as a lot of side dishes. Have those sort of ingredients in them. So, can I ask how did you come about discovering that garlic and onion was sort of not working, not only for you, but just in general, to recognizing that it's not.
In Ayurveda, garlic and onions are really seen as more of a medicine rather than a food. And that really kind of shifted my, the way that I use garlic and onion in my cooking as well. And now that I've come a long way on my journey, I still eat garlic and onions. It was just at that period of time, I was really restrictive and more strict on all of that. But they can just irritate your gut. So if you have an already inflamed like microbiome in need of support, or if you're experiencing different symptoms, like my belief is that removing things from your diet and slowly adding them back in to discover what's working for you and what's not is a good way to go.
Amazing.
Yeah. That brings me kind of to two questions, actually. One being, so you said the bone broth is kind of like a healer for your gut.
Yeah.
Do you believe then after like taking out those inflammatory things, healing your gut, is that's when you could slowly reintroduce them without having the same effects they used to have on you?
Yeah, I mean, that's something that I'm a huge advocate for in like anybody's healing journey, is that the intention behind restricting and adhering to all of these different protocols is to eventually be able to add things back in and get your gut back to a place where it can handle things like that. The problem is that like once the gut like is worn down and that it doesn't have that strong microbiome, then it can be really hard for your gut to like break down anything. So it's really having like the integrity of the gut wall, which is why bone broth is so great, because it mimics that lining of the gut wall. So it repairs damage to the gut.
Oh, wow.
And it like builds back the integrity in the microbiome so that you can handle things easier. And I think that a lot of people do get stuck in remaining restrictive forever because there's some belief that like, oh, well, if I go back to eating this thing, I'm not going to feel good again. But the point of healing our gut is so that we can enjoy all that life has to offer.
Yeah, it's kind of like when you're just sick, even with like the flu, you can't go run a mile when you're that sick, but when you do heal again, you can go back and run that mile.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I love also too how it's kind of like you're talking about using food as medicine in a way to heal your gut. Because that's what, instead of like, I know a lot of times there's like different, people might go to antibiotics even, or like different types of medicines to heal, but you're like, food is nourishing and you can use it that way, which I think, I don't know if you know this, but then what kind of like medicine is onion and garlic used for?
So if you have a cold, or like garlic and onion can be really powerful at like drawing toxins and removing things from the body.
Yeah.
Great for like, you know, circulation and like pulling out congestion.
Okay.
Like people will put garlic in your ear for
I've heard of that, yeah.
Ear infection. There's all kinds of ways to use so many different plants as medicine. I think we've come a long way away from that, but we're kind of going back to that now and remembering.
Yeah.
I completely agree with that.
Yeah.
While we're kind of on the topic too of gut health, I read something too, and I have friends who have suffered from like leaky gut, and they're like, she calls it brain fog. She's like, when I just don't feel good, like I can't think right. And I read actually on your website too, something about GAPS syndrome. Can you tell us what that is?
Yeah. So gut and psychology syndrome is basically like the belief that your gut is your second brain, and that your gut controls a lot of your good feelings too. Like I think 70% of your serotonin is in your gut. So it has a huge effect on our mind and our well-being. And it basically, the thought is going back to like eating whole, nourishing foods, eliminating foods like soy and sugar and processed foods, and focusing on really nourishing foods like meats, some organ meats, all like whole home cooked foods, using stocks and bone broths. And it's used to cure like ADHD and autism and different autoimmune conditions. But really like all of these different philosophies and diets and whatever, really all the main thing is moving away from processed foods and eating whole foods, nourishing our bodies with nutrient dense foods that support overall well-being.
This is a new concept I've learned recently, where your gut can literally affect your emotions and how you think, which I think is absolutely insane and wonderful at the same time. It's like
pretty incredible. They're kind of finding that every symptom or chronic illness is all rooted in the gut, and fecal transplants are like a pretty good example of how much that can impact things like different mental disorders, like bipolar. Like if you use a fecal sample from another person who's struggled with like bipolar disorder, like you can get that through a fecal transplant.
Really? Hold on. So what is a fecal transplant?
Well, there's some more research done on using fecal transplant to help restore the integrity of the microbiome. They're finding like even things like Alzheimer's can be like pinpointed to missing bacteria in the gut. So it's to like replenish bacteria and restore the microbiome. But in doing that, they're finding that a lot of underlying conditions and things that you would think are not symptoms of, an unhealthy gut are actually like all rooted in the gut.
How would you go about finding like these tests in a way in order to like these things that like you can go to sort of like specific doctors on to have like these tests
in terms
done?
Of like GI tests?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's your doctor can do it. There's naturopathic doctors, there's at-home kits. They're all going to have different biomarkers and indicators.
Do you have any recommendations on like if you were to do like the at-home kits or any like natural based doctors that you like know of? Or
I feel like that's a very individual, depends completely on like what the person is dealing with, what kind of symptoms, what the goals are. Like I think best to like talk to your doctor or a holistic practitioner on that. I've done one years ago that was very extensive, but that's not going to be necessary for most people.
Got it.
Just like kind of
it was more from like a curiosity standpoint that I did that, but yeah.
No, I'm so curious because part of me is I'm always like, how do people go about finding these things? Because I say like, do we always talk about these things? So
I think
like,
that's the cool part about healing is like, the journey.
Yeah.
It's not that it's like the perfect example of it's not it's the journey, not the destination. I don't think we're ever going to get to a point where it's like, oh, we're healed now let's
truly
have fun. It's like going to be a lifelong thing where you're just going about discovering more about yourself and finding the right people on your path that are going to help you get where you need to go. Like as with anything, I think it's the same with your health journey. Like in relationships, you meet the right people, and you're the same with this. Like you'll meet the right practitioner or the right person that will lead you in the right direction.
Amazing.
Yeah, I love that. Especially like being just curious and open about new things when it comes to health. And just like, I'm a huge person on listening to your body, because I do believe too that like what works for somebody might not work for you, but something that works for you might not work for somebody else. So just try things and gauge how you feel. On that too, I kind of just want to bring up the fecal transplant thing again too. This is kind of like, just because I don't want people being like, oh my gosh, I think I'm going to need this right away.
I'm no expert on this, but I watched a documentary about
That's so
this.
fascinating.
I forget the name of it on Netflix, but the like professional hot dog eater was in the documentary because he has like
I could imagine
obviously a lot of gut issues after chowing down thousands of hot dogs, but...
This is, I was going to say that's probably more of an extreme case, I would think, with people who have extreme gut issues.
I mean, I chow down a row of Oreos, so I feel like I understand.
Yeah.
Just mix it with some bone broth.
So I'm like, please, you guys, be curious. Yeah, go get her bone broth before you go try to get the fecal infection. Let's try that first. Or fecal, whatever, transplant. Yes. Bone broth first. Let's try that. But yeah, I just love how there's so many different ways to heal your gut also. Yeah. Can you name other like anti-inflammatory foods or just foods that inflame the gut for people to kind of like either stay away from or eat more of?
Yeah, like again, it's so bio individual.
Yeah.
In the beginning, like if you're struggling with a lot of symptoms, I always recommend like removing as many potential doing like an elimination diet and removing as many trigger foods as possible and focusing on really like easy to digest, nourishing ingredients. Like for example, broccoli and cauliflower, they're like very good for you. They're vegetables. But for a lot of people, especially people with gut issues, they can have a hard time breaking those down because they're really like hearty, cruciferous vegetables can be a lot for the gut to break down. Or even just raw food. Like if you're struggling with gut issues, it can be really hard for some people to just break down raw vegetables. So like cooked vegetables can be so much easier for people to digest. So it's not like it's necessarily bad or unhealthy. It's just like, what are you able to process and digest? Like your body has to go through quite the process to receive information from the food so that it actually nourishes you. Like a good example is if you take supplements and a couple hours later you're peeing like electric yellow, then that's your body like not absorbing the nutrients that you put into your body. So it happens the same way with food. Like the enzymes in the gut like break down the food and absorb those nutrients. And when our gut is not doing the best job at that, like we don't get all of the information and good stuff from the food, so it doesn't nourish us in the way it's intended. And that's part of what I love about chronobiology and what we tie into what we do at Owl is like it's the idea that it's not just what you eat but when you eat as well. So yeah, it like really like that it's that same journey of self-discovery we're talking about and really listening to your body and seeing what works for you and what doesn't. It can be easier when you eliminate everything because then you have like a clean slate. Otherwise, you know, if you're eating 50 things in a day, how do you know what is upsetting you? So I think keeping things as like simple as possible, focusing on like whole simple ingredients and like maybe trying an elimination diet or a reset or something like that. So you get a better like gauge of where you're at.
Now, I have so many questions now for you based off this. So we're going to just take a step back. So I used to be a college swimmer back in the day. And so like one thing that they always, you know, had us take were like supplement. I wanted to kind of know your individual opinion on a lot of like supplement based stuff that can be given, because I was fine till I was about 23. But then I started getting really sick from doing like certain kinds of supplements because I was noticing like, again, in my gut that I was like, this doesn't feel right. This doesn't feel good. But then like if I did like even all natural, like quote unquote powder supplements or something to like help with like food intake or something, like I would notice I like wasn't feeling like 100%.
Yeah, that makes total sense.
Right. And so it's just like, so how do you how can you like give us some education on like what people can do sort of to help with that? Because I think that that's something that like a lot of people really struggle with.
Yeah, I think we're overall over supplemented. I think that in a lot of cases, like supplements are in capsules. If you're struggling with gut issues, some people aren't even like fully breaking down the capsule and getting to what's inside. In addition to that, like I just don't think we fully understand enough to know if you're like artificially pumping yourself with a supplement that your body naturally creates on its own. How is it throwing off the balance of other things in the body?
Yeah.
The supplements that we do at Owl are all organic, wildcrafted herbs. So what those do is the herbs encourage your body to produce the chemistry on its own. Like, so our digestive enzymes help to activate your natural digestive enzymes so that you're basically just encouraging your body to do its job rather than taking digestive enzymes and becoming reliant on a supplement. Rather than like encouraging your body to create that. I think there is some good with supplements. I'm more of a believer in like food-based supplements, but I think really like you need to find health with your food, and the supplements should probably be like a maybe cherry on top. I don't think it's being reliant on supplements in my mind isn't much different than being reliant on pharmaceutical drugs. Like even though we're creating these things naturally, we don't know how it affects the body when we're like not naturally producing that within our own systems, you know, and how it might throw off the balance with your levels of something else, you know. So again, I think it's something that every person needs to discover on their own. And it sounds like you had a pretty good gauge of what felt good for you and what didn't, and were able to recognize like the powders is a whole nother thing. Those are mostly processed foods. And a lot of them have artificial sweeteners and filler ingredients that aren't really good for you. So it makes total sense that you wouldn't feel good if you're replacing meals, whole food meals, with processed foods.
Yeah.
So it's very eye-opening. Is there any type of supplements, or do you know how now on packaging everybody puts like different stamps of approval? Is there anything that you can encourage people to look out for when it comes to certain types of supplements that are either good or bad for you?
I personally focus on like herbal or food-based supplements with like whole natural ingredients without like the capsules that we use at Owl. We use like a GMO coconut capsule, but not every brand even discloses what's in those sometimes. So it can be kind of hard to navigate, really. I think now more than ever these days we need to find brands we really trust. And I
look at boxes all the time. I'm like, I don't know what this means.
And look for brands that you trust, and do your own research, and also just like, you know, follow your gut.
Follow your gut.
You know, and I'll say, I mean, gosh, even when, so Christine and I recently went to Hawaii with some friends, and one of the people that was on our trip with the friends, like very much into like holistic wellness.
So much. Yes.
So much so that's like, it's like a strict regimen. It's very, and it was amazing to see, because I think we like, especially for, you know, Sam and I, we were like, we got kind of kicked in the butt on realizing like how bad some of the foods we eat are, you know, for us and stuff.
Walking through Costco, like, she's like, nope, can't
walking
get that.
Through Costco
can't
was
get that,
rough.
Get this.
Because it's like we see so much, and we're like, man, like, and I think that was, in a way, it was almost exhausting trying to like go through, and like, so also too, it's like
I see a lot of that too. Like
it's overwhelming.
It is.
Well, it's like some people are so into wellness to the point where it may be more of a mental illness. Like
I get that.
I think people become very obsessive and perfectionistic about it, and it's like, it's not about that to me.
Do you think that there's
not about like perfection? It's about like just really like tuning back in with your body, because at the end of the day, if we eat when we're hungry, we drink when we're thirsty, and we sleep when we're tired, our body works perfectly, and we don't need any supplements or gurus or cold plunges or whatever. We just need to like live our lives and be in touch with our body's cues. Like our body pretty much tells us what it needs all day long. The problem is usually we're so consumed with this, that, or the other thing, or so busy rushing to this or that we're not really listening or paying attention to what our bodies are saying to us. So we eat when we're not hungry. We eat when we're sad, when we're stressed, when we're tired, and we forget to drink water, and we push past like our cues for sleep and watch TV and look at our phones. And ultimately, like every time that we don't listen to our body or give it what it needs, we're like saying like, well, that, you know, I don't really care what you have to say. And our body responds to that. So
absolutely.
That's really like the root of any illness or disease, is that like disconnection from self.
And so like for a lot of people too, I know this was like a big thing that even like some of my friends and I have discussed was, you know, even going to the grocery store, you know, whether that you shop at Whole Foods or you shop at Ralph's, you know, or all these different things. And some people have arguments like, oh, just because it says organic doesn't mean it is organic. I'm just curious to know, like, in the long run, does that make a big difference?
Like organic
Versus like organic foods, but also too in regards to just like foods in general, whether if not you're shopping at like specific stores. Because I think a lot of people
I
are
don't
like
think stores, like I think any store you go to, you're going to be able to find like whole fruits and vegetables at the end of the day. Like I think as close to the source as you, like eating foods of the region is ultimately better than eating foods of superfoods of the world, you know, like so just keeping it more simple and not stressing. I think honestly the stress of worrying about things can sometimes be worse than just
because stress has a huge impact on your body too. It's just like you might be eating
something's
good.
Gonna kill you is gonna kill you before the thing itself.
Actually,
you know? So at the end of the day, we all just do the best that we can, and we want to focus on like simple ingredients, no like additives, like, and making our food at home as much as we can, because when we eat out, like we don't know what oils or whatever people are using. And I personally think that when we prepare food for ourselves, it's also an act of love and an act of nourishing ourselves. And I think our bodies and ourselves respond differently when we make our food or when we eat food prepared by someone who loves us. Like I think a lot of that has been forgotten in the age of Postmates and DoorDash and, you know, quick whatever from whoever else. Like there is something to be said about like the healing properties of love as like an ingredient in preparing food, whether it's you for yourself or someone in your family or a friend that cares about you.
Yeah. I like that you mentioned that because Matt knows I eat pretty healthy, but I like to follow kind of a 75-25% rule where as long as I'm eating food 75% of the time, I know what's in them. And on that note too, when you start
buying, that you decided on 75-25 instead of the 80-20.
I like odd numbers. That's like my thing. I don't know why my brain thinks like that. I love my odd numbers. I'm not that even number person, which is odd to a lot of people. But yeah, 75-25. And when I started buying organic though, like it kind of naturally happened for me moving out to Cali. I'm from Chicago and I was never taught to like be aware of what you're putting into your body. So when I naturally took initiative myself and started looking into more organic things and healthy stuff, you can kind of know just from looking at it, the quality, I feel like, of what you're consuming, as well as if it's probably good for you or not. But also it's like having meals with people going out, you don't know what's in it, but also that environment. Like I'm not going to deprive myself of enjoying time with my friends just because I'm worried about what's in the food. I'm just not doing it every single day. Just like I love my ice cream. I'm not giving up my ice cream. So that's okay as long as like I'm cooking my dinner. Yeah. So I love that aspect. And I know this is a little woo-woo too, but they've done frequency on like water or something. When you focus on it and you give it your attention, it actually changes the frequency of it. So I like how you mentioned like preparing your meal, taking that time for yourself. Also, it's better for your gut when you take time eating and enjoy what you're eating and realizing like,
that is a huge one. When we're stressed, when we're eating food, we don't digest the food properly. So that is like a big, big one that I think a lot of people forget. And people that are eating on the go and paying zero attention.
For sure.
And I think that's another reason I don't like the powdered meal replacement. It just really feeds into that culture of like a disconnect between us, ourselves, and the food that we're eating, which is ultimately like making up all of our cells and fueling our lives.
Yeah. I mean, I love the fact that too, it's just like, so you're like being mindful when you're eating. That's so important because it's something that, again, like we don't think about too much. We're in a constant state of go, 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 go. And just being able to slow down in that way is so massive. I think that is so huge. I also too, you know, I know you're talking about like eating out, and that's also a big thing is that, you know, I love being able to go to a good restaurant. I love being able to, like see new environments and try new foods. And so I was wondering, do you have like recommendations in the LA or Southern California area that restaurants or places that you really like to go to that sort
I
of
have a long list.
practice a lot
I
of
love
the
eating out
really?
too. Yeah.
Where should we go next?
Yeah.
I don't know this area at all.
We're actually,
Yeah.
so I've started bringing Matt to the beach to do our work because I'm a huge, like, let's get out of the house, bring our laptops to like Harry's by the beach. And just like they have
Nice.
Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
So we're out by that area, like your area all the time.
Okay.
So what's your favorite restaurant out there?
I really like Jelena.
Okay.
I tried La Great Outdoor recently. That was really good.
Okay.
In Santa Monica. I always like sugarfish or kazunori for sushi. That's a good one. I know you guys have that over
Mhm.
here.
Yeah.
There's a place called Kobe's that is like very interesting, like Indian fusion on Main Street in Santa Monica. That's really good. I can send you a full list.
She's like,
I
got you
I
guys.
guys.
No, I'm sure you
Yeah.
could.
I just want to know, because like a part of me is like, man, like it's right. It's hard to find good restaurant, and there's always good
Yeah.
restaurants, but restaurants that are like, responsible too
Yeah.
with, how they, cook their foods.
Yeah, and
they're healthy
There
and-
are restaurants that are.
yeah.
I
And
feel
so-
like a lot of restaurants are vocal about that too, because that's something they pride themselves off of,
Yeah.
like farm to table, like either
Out here.
vegan, like a lot of times people try to promote it.
yeah.
I don't, you never know. But
No,
people
out here
promote
they
that
do.
stuff.
I can't say the same for the rest of the U.S., but
On that note too, can you tell us a little bit about like your cleanses? Because we've talked a lot about gut health and bone broth,
Mhm.
but I've personally done your cleanse and I love it. So can you share with us some information on that?
Yeah, so the reset is made up of 3 broths and 3 shakes designed to drink morning, noon, and night. So you
Mhm.
get a broth and a shake with every meal. And then you also get a list of approved foods, and we pair you up with a health coach so you can discuss your goals and make the most of your experience. We have a 4, 6, and an 8-day program that can be done as an all liquid cleanse, or you can incorporate food. For us, that's really just going back to the nourishment over deprivation, and really listening to your body. And if you're feeling hungry, then we encourage you to eat, because the thing with weight loss is when we really try to lose weight and we restrict ourselves, then our body thinks like that we
starving
might not
ourselves.
feed it later.
Yeah.
So it
Mhm.
holds on to everything and makes it nearly impossible to lose weight. And not to mention the stress around food that
Mhm.
also,
Cortisol, yeah.
like makes things harder to digest. And so, yeah, when I shifted the narrative from like, I want to like lose weight or like look a certain way,
Mhm.
to when I started dealing with all of these gut issues, and I started thinking like, how do I feel better? How do I nourish myself? Like, I just want to feel good.
Yeah.
And I started like giving my body what it was asking for. Then I lost a ton of weight, like without trying at all. And really that is what got the interest of my friends who saw the physical transformation. But for me, it wasn't really about the physical transformation. It was about that, like, the mental switch for me
yeah.
was changed. The like inner narrative and the inner dialogue and my goals were
Yeah.
different.
It's cool. It's like when you shift that mindset and you end up with.
I believe the entire body is connected.
Yeah.
Like if one is out of balance, it brings everything else out of balance. That's why I'm like mind, body, spirit. Like check which one needs help, nourish it, and see how the rest of your body is often affected. Because like we've discussed before, your gut can impact your mind can impact your gut. And it's just all one whole thing.
Yeah, 1,000%.
Yeah.
I also just love the fact that we've preached that so much
We
on
do.
this podcast every
Mind,
single
body,
episode.
spirit, baby. Yeah.
And just like about just advocating for yourself and advocating for your body and advocating for
Yeah.
what feels good and what feels right, and the rest will follow.
Yeah.
And even for when it comes to just health in general,
Yeah.
when it comes to even weight loss, like that is so massive.
Yeah, it was really incredible what happened for me once I decided like I'm only going to put things in my body that make me feel good, and it was like everything else in my life fell into place. I wasn't doing Owl before I started this. I didn't intend to start this company, but it was like through that act of self-love, I was able to like heal myself and then help others in the process and kind of discover my purpose and my path. And I think for anyone that really decides to heal themselves and to go on that journey, they exactly like everything will fall into place.
Yeah, I'm such a believer in that so much. And I'll never actually forget, because when I took your cleanse, I think it was on day 2. I was thinking I had to reach out to you guys if I had any questions. I wish I remembered her name because she was so sweet.
Yvonne, probably.
Maybe. She calls me. I get a phone call and it looked like your number, like the Owl's number. So I'm like, hello? And they're like, hi, how are you doing? And I was kind of thrown off because I'm like, you guys are checking up on me during my cleanse. That's something I feel like is unheard of with so many companies. So that meant the world to me. But then I told her, I'm like, I'll be honest with you, I'm a little crabby because I'm very hungry. She's like, you do realize like you can eat. And of course, my automatic response is like, yes, but when I do something, I want to do it all the way, the right way.
That's like everybody's response.
Yeah. And she's like, there is no right way. Listen to your body, do what feels good. And just hearing that though, and that's why I encourage people on their journey also to like reach out to companies and people who are going to help and support you, because it actually does help you support yourself at the same time. Her telling me that like you should eat something if you're really that crabby and ravenous. It's not meant to like bring you down or make you like feel uncomfortable. Just listen to yourself. And there's a list of approved foods. I think I started adding like quinoa to the soup or something like that. And that made all the difference just from like adding that little bit and giving myself some grace. After that, the rest of the cleanse was amazing. It was amazing from the get-go. It tastes delicious.
Arguably the hardest for sure, like for most people. And for me, I was living in Chicago when I got into wellness. Really.
Oh, what part?
Like Grand and Halstead.
Okay.
Kind of area.
We
both lived, well, he lived temporary. I was born and raised Chicago, so.
I lived on a Halstead in Sheridan.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
We were neighbors.
Literally down the street.
So wait, you got into wellness in Chicago?
Yeah.
Really?
And for me, that was so isolating because no one gave 2 craps.
I was going to say the fact
Chicago,
that you got
they
into
were like, vegan? What is vegan?
Well,
like,
hence I brought up my comment. I was like, they may check your ingredients here, but not anywhere else in the United States like that.
It was very isolating for me, like going on that journey. And when I moved to LA, it was completely different. Everybody like embraces and loves wellness here, which initially I loved. Now it's like almost too extreme. But
I get that.
For me with this reset program, it was so important for me to layer in the coaching part of it and weave that into our customer experience, because I felt like so many people would be in that position like I was, where they would just feel isolated from their families, friends, communities in trying to do something like this. So I wanted to remove that barrier and make sure people felt like really supported and there would be somebody that they could talk to that would understand. So we do have our coaches reach out to all of our new customers and make sure that they know what they're doing and that they feel that support. Because I think not enough people take advantage of the coaching. But for me, that's why.
I appreciated that so much. I was to the point thrown off because I'm like, wow, this is so unique. And it just,
I think it does throw people off. Like, why are you calling me? Like, sorry, just wanted to check in.
But that's the thing. I needed that call though. So I was like, wow, thank you so much. It just, I don't know. I feel like that's what sets you guys apart so much, is you can genuinely tell you care about what you're giving to people and you care about the outcomes and just the individual themselves. So to my people in Chicago also, they do ship internationally. Not internationally, sorry. Nationally. Yeah. Is that the right word I'm supposed to be using? I always want to be international. They ship throughout the United States, correct? Yeah. So anybody in the world now can get your cleanse.
Anyone in the
48
country.
states?
Oh my God, why do I keep saying that?
So,
sorry.
wait, is it just the 48 states?
For you.
Or do you go to Alaska and Hawaii too?
We do go to Alaska and Hawaii, but there is an additional shipping cost.
Okay. So
sorry, I'm thinking big for you, babe.
That's okay.
My bad. Anybody in the country can get them.
Next year on the podcast,
I love that. No,
go.
I would love to. Yeah, full circle. Let's go. But A question my friend had for me too when I mentioned, I talked to my friend who has gut issues. She's been such an inspiration when it comes to me like looking into different things too. She was curious, what's the difference between a detox and a cleanse?
So for us, we really just decided to call it a reset because I didn't like the word cleanse because I thought it implied that you're somehow like not clean to begin with, you know, like for us, it's like your body is healing itself all of the time and you're perfect in every moment. But, you can just take a pause and reset. To me, that just sounded
That's like so beautiful. I just saw the look on Matt's face.
I'm good.
How'd you feel from that?
That was I needed to hear that.
Yeah.
Truly.
Yeah.
It's so beautiful. Yeah.
It like, yeah.
So who would you recommend your reset for?
I think anyone who needs a reset, you know, like anyone that just wants to take a pause or a moment to just like get back in touch with that voice and that inner guide and compass. Obviously, anybody with gut issues, I think it's great for anybody that's like, you know, recovering from surgery and needing to do some sort of liquid diet. This is a great one because it's really nourishing rather than, and it doesn't have sugar and there's been so many different use cases that I've heard people using it for and so many different ways that it's helped people. Like recently I met a woman who got her period for the first time naturally in 12 years on day 4 of her reset. She was struggling with PCOS. And my friend from Chicago, his girlfriend was having major like hormone issues. Her doctor told her he didn't think she'd be able to get pregnant. She did the owl reset and got pregnant like 1 week later.
Oh, wow.
Like, I've heard the most incredible stories. So I think it's more so if you're being called to do it, like, do it.
Yeah. Listen to your body.
Listen to your body and trust your gut.
Give it what it needs. No, I'll never forget too on my day 4, when I saw you, that's when we went to the beach to work. You're like, you look great. I'm like, I feel great. Because I personally used it after a rough week in London of not eating well at all and heavily drinking at that time. And it was just what I needed to make me feel better and lighter and honestly just more clear and whole. So thank you for that.
Yeah. It can be really amazing like how much of a difference you feel after such a short period of time.
Yeah.
You know, and one thing too is like, I know that after you did your cleanse, how much you loved it. And then you were like, Matt, you should try it. And I was like, oh no.
I think there's like a fear around it.
There is. And that was the thing, like there is such a huge fear around it, which is one of the reasons why I was scared to do it.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, man, I work so much. I do all these different things. I haven't, I work out too.
Yeah.
I have these really busy days. Like I can't imagine ever just going on like a liquid cleanse like that, or, to do, even a partial liquid cleanse. And that's just, to me, that was like really scary. And so how do you talk to people about sort of like, talking them off that, scared feeling?
I mean, I still feel that sometimes about like doing something that I know is good for me. I think sometimes we get scared to do things that we know we need to do that are good for us. And it's easier to do it's more comfortable to just stay stuck, rather than really make a change and a commitment to yourself. It does take discipline. And it takes a real commitment to yourself. And that can be hard and scary. And I've seen customers come up with all kinds of excuses or problems around why they're not able to do this or that even after making the investment. Like the investment's the first step, but then you still have to do it and go through the program and really commit to yourself. And I think a lot of people are afraid to commit to themselves and are afraid to give themselves what they need. Because it can be scary and it can be hard. Like doing the right thing is often really hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's why I'm so big on starting with small things and also building your confidence, because now whenever I think of something hard, I remember I'm showing up for myself, I'm loving myself, and that's all the reason I need to do something. And especially when I started small, like buying just more organic stuff and eating healthier, it's like when you realize you're capable of doing those things, then when some things, they still scare you, but you know you're capable of getting through it.
Yeah.
So that's,
I think meeting people where they're at is super important.
Yeah.
And we're currently working on programs that are more maintenance plans or easy to fit into like your week or your month, instead of like an all liquid, you know, something that really does take carving out a little bit of time and space for yourself. Even just like adding 1 jar of broth into your weekly routine, or like replacing one of your meals with a nutrient dense shake, you know. It doesn't have to be a big thing or a 4-day reset. It can just be like one little thing.
I love that.
I like how you said adding something in, because I feel like a lot of times people think that like taking away stuff is hard. But if you're just adding something else into your routine, like you're not taking away anything that you normally do. You're just trying something new.
Yeah,
I feel like that's less
why
intimidating.
we try to give a list of approved foods and focus like, here's what you can have. Like this big list of all these things that sound actually pretty good. You know, instead we don't have a list of things not to eat, because when people ask us, oh, can I have alcohol or can I have coffee? It's like, sure.
Yeah.
But if your goal is to get the most out of the reset, or if your goal is to detox from caffeine, then maybe don't.
Yeah.
You know, but ultimately it's your choice. And I think the first step is getting clear on your goals and then doing what it takes to get you there. And that's where it can be like tough and scary, because sometimes it's hard, the steps we need to take to get where we want to go.
Yeah. And also, you know, speaking of coffee,
Oh man,
because I am a coffee addict, so that's
I
like
am too.
You know, and is that okay?
Is that okay?
Well, it depends on the person, you know, like if you feel good when you drink coffee. Like for me, I became allergic to green tea when I got pregnant with my second son.
Oh wow.
And weirdly, like that's how I found out I was pregnant. I started throwing up after drinking a cup of green tea and thought it was like a pregnancy symptom. And I have never been able to drink a cup of green tea without getting sick since. So
wow.
Yeah, I drink coffee. God wants me to drink coffee. But for me, like coffee, there's times when I don't drink coffee because I'm noticing that I like am getting anxious and sweating and like just getting indications from my body that like it's too much for me, or this isn't supportive for me with where I'm at right now.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean I'm done with it forever. Maybe I'll have some tomorrow, or like maybe it's not making me feel good and I'm still going to do it anyways.
Yeah.
Because I didn't sleep that well last night.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be anxious and sweaty, but like also awake. So it's just kind of like having that conversation with yourself, I think. But
Yeah. I love that answer, because I feel like so many people are like anti-coffee. Like,
I know.
no coffee,
So many people are
call it
like
a day.
all in or nothing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that was just the most human, most real response. So thank you so much for that, because I think that's a big thing that people really struggle with. It's just like, well, I can't just, like you said, I can't just take something out of my day, just, you know, just to like make myself better like that. Like it takes time.
Yeah.
You know, and I think
and
that
if you feel like coffee isn't working for you, then like try to find an alternative that you can add in that gives you that same reward that coffee does. You know,
absolutely.
whether that's like a mushroom or a dandelion tea or cacao or whatever, like finding something that can be that ritual and give you that like happy feeling or whatever, you know, that coffee
absolutely
gives you.
Speaking of drinks, I know too, because I was loving your blog today. I was going through all of the different like recipes and things you guys recommend. Do you have any adaptogen drinks that you love? And can you kind of explain like how adaptogens influence people?
Yeah, so adaptogens are basically like the auto setting on the thermostat. If you get too hot, it'll cool you down. If you get too cold,
they give you what you need.
Yeah. Kind of like matches your chemistry. I like to say that about our gut sweep, like whether you're like needing to go more or needing to go less, like it'll kind of like adapt to your needs. I think ashwagandha is like a great adaptogen. That's one that I use a lot, and I'll add it to like cacao, latte kind of thing.
Yeah.
I like to make a cashew milk with coconut water. That's like my jam. Because you don't need to like strain the cashews like you do with almonds.
Yeah.
So it's just like a much easier, quick process to make a nut milk for me. I just put like
So you make your own nut milk?
Yeah.
Okay.
But it takes me like 30 seconds. I just
Really?
take like I get the coconut water from Costco, the like 12 pack or whatever, and I put half of those with like a small handful of cashews and blend it and add it to my coffee.
It's not chunky. You don't have to strain it, you said?
You don't have to strain
Really?
it. Hemp is another good one to do that with because of the same thing. You don't have to strain it.
Because I've seen
Amazing.
I've TikTok and Instagram
I'm not
are great
dealing
for
with
everything.
the nut bags of pulp and
Yeah, because that's what I see when people
Yeah.
try to make nut milk. A lot of times you see them blend it up and then
and
see
then they
them.
have to strain it.
Yeah.
No, I don't have time for that.
Oh my gosh, that's great because it is very, very fast and easy. I know.
Yeah.
Thankfully, I found, I'm going to butcher the name of it, but I look for like milks that don't have gums in them and organic, and I probably do pay a decent amount of money for them.
I think Elmhurst is like the best of the like packaged nut milks that I've found because they have like only 2 ingredients, like the nuts and the water. But this is way better if you make it with the coconut water because you get
I
like
didn't know you didn't have to strain cashews. That's great.
I mean, they might tell you to strain them if you read like, I'm sure there's a recipe that'll tell you to strain it, but I don't.
But as long
it's
as you don't
fine.
like taste like graininess
No,
or
it doesn't
anything, it's
taste
just
grainy. No.
Like
I mean, you need to blend it on high for like a minute or 2.
Yeah.
You know, just blend it.
But yeah, just from looking at your blog too, like I said, it's great. I love how much information you guys have there. That's where I learned about like you guys have adaptogen drinks, you guys have different gut healthy like recipes. Other things I saw too was, can you tell us the benefit of tongue scraping and dry brushing? Because I know those are 2 things that have recently been kind of brought up to people's attention.
Yes. So dry brushing is a great one because it really moves the lymphatic system. So it gets all of your like toxins flowing. The lymph like moves toxins through the body so you can eliminate them. So stagnation is really like the root of disease when things get stuck. So like keeping that flow going, keeping things moving. Dry brushing is great. You want to like brush towards.
Do you know what dry brushing is, Matt?
I have no idea. That's why I'm like,
like
and
a
also
little-
I know viewers are like, well, I don't know what she's talking about.
You get like a little brush that had like.
Think of a very bristly brush, not rough,
Bristly
very
brush.
soft bristles. Kind of what you would think like a mom brushing her hair or something. Like a daughter's, the old school looking brushes, I feel like. Is that what you would describe them as?
like the newborn wooden brushes.
Kind of, yeah. It's not like thick bristles.
Like bristly hairs.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you just want to like basically like go along your body, especially like in your armpits and behind your knees and like where your, you know, lymphs live.
It's just like gently brushing. I personally thought it was to just get rid of like dry skin and help with circulation. But yeah, that makes sense if you're going over
it's
an
also
area.
good for removing dry skin, but I think the major benefits come from that like like if you hear of like a lymphatic drainage or the massage, like it's essentially the same thing.
Oh, very nice.
Seems very
Has the same benefits.
Yeah.
I would say. Yeah.
I'm surprised I haven't tried it because I try a bunch of stuff, but it seems very relaxing too. It's like
I like the dry brushing. Yeah.
What about tongue scraping?
And then tongue scraping helps to like remove toxins from your tongue and helps with like having better breath and good for oral hygiene. I don't personally do the tongue scraping as much as the dry brushing.
Yeah. Do you know what tongue scraping is?
Yes, I know what tongue scraping is.
I
Yeah,
enjoy
good to go.
it more. I enjoy the dry brushing more. The tongue scraping, I feel like I just, you can only do so many things.
Yeah.
No, definitely. That's why when you think of some people's skincare and health regimen, it does honestly seem exhausting.
I'm a firm believer in do what you enjoy.
Yeah.
And that's it. If you don't like it, don't do it.
Yeah.
Like, unless you like the way you feel after, you know, then okay, I could see why people cold plunge. But for me, like, unless I have a sauna there, I'm not going to cold plunge because I don't like it.
Yeah.
I don't care how good it is for me. There's other things that are great for me that I do enjoy. So I'm going to do those things instead.
Yeah.
Completely. I used to be, and I still love my cold plunge. I used to be super like obsessed with it just because I thought I'm like, I need to do this every day to prove to myself I can jump in cold water. Now I still love that I have one. I do it maybe like once a week, but I do it because I notice it helps me with like soreness and inflammation. If I'm just feeling stuffy or like, you know how when you're kind of inflamed, I feel like sometimes you just feel puffy and hot. I'm like, if I feel like that, I'm jumping in my cold plunge. But now I don't feel the need to do it just to prove to myself to do it every single day.
Yeah.
I'm always like, try something, see if you like it. If you like it, great, use it when you need it. But like, also, if you don't like it, don't feel bad about nixing it. Just try something though. I feel like a lot of people, like we've said, are scared to try also. Because then they're worried. They're like, oh, do I have to commit to this now? Is this going to be a thing? But it's no.
Yeah.
You can choose when you like things.
It's more about the consistency too. So that's why it's so important to pick things you enjoy. Like I love taking baths with Epsom salts and like I can like do that a couple of times a week consistently. Your body and your nervous system respond to I know that at this time, at this day, I'm going to get this. Like that's like when the more rituals you bring into your life, the more your body is going to just be able to like, like I'm safe, I'm taken care of, like I can. And that's why kids do so well with routine and structure, because they're like, okay, like I know I'm gonna get that, and then they don't have to worry about like when they're gonna eat. They like know what time dinner is.
And especially too, you know, as a busy mom, as a business owner, you know, I think a lot of people too, they're just like, they come up with the excuse, I just don't have time for blank, you know, I don't have time for that, you know. And so what is like something super small that you think people can add, and something maybe you've kind of experienced from your own life that people can do on their everyday to really help just kind of benefit them?
Yeah. Well, one thing is, and like I forget this all the time, but it's an important reminder that like the more, it's like this, like the more love you give, the more love there is.
Yeah.
Like the more time you give yourself, the more time there is. That's like, you don't think that that's the case, but it does work like that. Like when you take the 5 minutes to meditate or take a walk or journal or whatever it is that you love that makes you feel good, or sitting in silence with your coffee.
Something that really actually stuck with me this week that I heard was somebody's like, imagine if somebody handed you a human and said like, this is your human, you have, I mean with kids especially, now you probably know this, but this is your human.
Like, that did happen to me.
Yeah. You have to take care of, but it's like, why can't you be that human for yourself also? Like, why don't you show up for yourself the way that you would show up for a young child? Because it is your job to take care of yourself.
You kind of do show up for your kid how you show up for yourself, I gotta say. Whether you like it or not, you know? The more love you give yourself, the better you feel, the better parent you are, the more present and loving you are with your kids. And the more you neglect yourself and feel like crap, the more you're going to be irritated or short.
I get
like,
that.
You kind of like think that you'd be better to your kid than you are to yourself. But in most ways, it kind of just is the same.
I love that response. Everything is kind of like a reflection of you.
How you do
world.
anything is how you do everything.
I love that.
That's like one of my favorite things to like, you know.
How you do anything is how you do everything.
Yeah.
Huh.
Kind of like looking at your life like that. Like, am I getting stuck in traffic and like trying to take a shortcut and it ends up taking me like 10 more minutes? Like, where else am I doing that in my life?
I'm sure
Or like, did I, you know, not close the door or the jar lid all the way, or the cabinet, like when I was done? Like, where else am I leaving things open, or, you know?
Yeah, I get that. I'm over here like,
no, it's just
on that
so
note
true.
then too, I feel like we've talked about so many subjects of how like honestly you help other people and how you encourage people to show up for themselves, but how do you show up for yourself? What are your favorite routines then?
I love my morning coffee with my cashew milk. That is, I don't take out my phone until usually until my kids have left for school. If I'm taking my kids to school, I look at my phone when I'm in the shower. so that I've like looked at any major things before I take them to school. But I do have like I give myself space and time before I look at my phone. I put it on airplane mode at night, away from my bed, so I do get some separation there. I feel like I have more of an evening routine than a morning routine because my kids wake up at 5:45 a.m. daily. But at night they go to bed at 7:30. So that's when I like wind down. A lot of times I take a bath, I do my skincare routine, I get in bed, I either read a book or journal or watch a show and just like take time to myself in silence a lot. For me, like I'm a big like I can't get enough quiet time with having 2 toddlers. That's probably like my biggest like thing. I get overwhelmed by like too much noise.
Yeah.
So that's been like probably the biggest challenge for me with like 2 screaming kids around. Like that's something that really like grates on my nervous system. Kids? So savoring at night, like quiet.
Yeah.
My kids are 2 and 3.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Those
are good ages.
For uncles.
Yes.
For uncles.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
No, it is a good age. Yeah. They're super cute at this age. For me, like once they hit 2, it's starting to get a lot better. I always thought I was like such a baby person, but the baby years were tough for me. The first 2 years were tough. I'm like enjoying it so much more now that they're like talking and telling me they love me, and
they have like little personalities now.
Yeah, they're like dancing and singing and just like total personalities coming out. So it's getting more fun.
That's great. I love hearing about your nightly routine and your family. I'm sure that's something everybody can relate to, though, is like they have their children and you show up for your children and you show up for yourself. You know what I mean? Like you have your mom time at night, and then you have your family time during the day.
And your kids watch how you show up for yourself. It's pretty, and like your kids, all they do is model what you're doing.
Yeah.
So, you know, my oldest, when he loses something, he's like, "Where is it? Where is it? Where is it?" And I'm just like, "Oh man." That's so me.
Is it?
Like ultimate freak out. When
Wait, so what do you tell him then when he does that?
I tell him that I'm going to help him look for it and to calm down. But, you know.
You're like, I should be telling myself this, that.
That's when I get upset, though, when I can't find something with their dad. I'm like, help me look for it.
That's so funny. Oh, well, thank you so much for coming on and sharing just your business and who you are, honestly. It's been such a great conversation. Is there anything you do want to mention or share with our viewers before we kind of close out? Yeah, just like be easy on yourself. Don't take yourself so seriously, even though like we're talking about serious issues with gut health and it is incredibly important, but like at the end of the day, we're here to live and be happy and be in community with others. And so yeah, reach out, be easy on yourself. And thanks for having me. What an honor. Yeah, no, thank you so much.
Yeah, truly, thank you.
Yeah. And until next time, I love you.
And thank you so much. And keep shining your light.
Thanks, guys.